So good afternoon, everyone. Really honored to be here. My name is Nanne Dru. This is my partner from Munich, Sander Ampelo. We will be presenting the villa project we did in Munich called Villa B. We started on this project in 2014 when our client actually approached us, and he had just bought a property along the river Isar in Munich, which is an area which is known for a lot of large houses, villas, townhouses, and they're kind of characterized by being kind of McMansion style stucco buildings, quite large, and all of them have actually large stucco walls around them. And he had a few very interesting requests as a brief. He said, well, first, we would like to have a house that doesn't have a wall around it, a perimeter wall. The house just needs to stand on the street. And also we would like the house not to be white, but rather dark. We'd like a dark house. And that for us was already a very intriguing first brief. And the other thing he said, it would be great if it would be a contemporary house, but at the same time also rooted in Munich. And Munich has let's say, quite a particular architectural history with a lot of classical buildings that have clear influences from the Italian side. And also has quite a rich history of historical buildings that were either demolished in the war, but let's say pre-modern buildings that were like kind of on the tipping point of being kind of modern without being yet defined as such as for instance the Neue Pinakothek. So that was one part of the project. The other part of the project is that on the back of the house there is the river Isar, which is a beautiful part of the site, views over the river. And the client wanted also to really expose the house openly towards that side of the plot. So we set out sketching and working on the project, and our first hunch was to make a building that is actually quite a radical transformation on the front to have a very closed and really monumental house. And actually towards the back to open up towards the side, towards the river, and towards the views. And that played out in a kind of two ways. On the one hand in the facades, on the other hand in the plan. On the facade we made a front facade which is really symmetrical, quite monumental, really strong, quite vertical in its orientation. And then towards the side of the building it starts to open up, and on the back of the building it's actually fully horizontal. And that's also kind of reflected in the plan. So from the entrance area, you actually have a very symmetrical classical condition where you have a large reception hall, on the left staff kitchen, on the right a library. And then as you proceed through the house, actually you enter, let's say, more informally organized area. And this plan, we actually called it the kind of Loos transforms into Mies plan, as you have actually, let's say, a really solid front and then a, let's say, more open, organized back, where actually the rooms are not carved out of mass anymore, but actually rather made out of elements. So this was the first image we made of the project. A dark stone, marble, dark marble with brass detailing, a really monumental front, really close on the front, open on the street, and then towards the back the house transforms into this kind of soaring horizontal plates that really stress the horizontality of the house and also make it really more villa-like, and also really fold open onto the landscape and to the sun. So the material palette was basically dark brown marble, brass detailing, copper detailing, and dark wood and steel. So we spent around 4 years building this house. We did actually all the engineering of all the different parts of the house. We had no general contractor, only subcontractors that we actually all controlled and engineered. Here you see the corner detail where the house actually starts to fold towards the back. And then here at the back of the house you see how the house fully opens up and actually the interior fully flows into the garden. Well, the interior was designed by Christian Liègre, the French interior architect, and we really collaborated very closely with him to create a kind of seamless experience from exterior to interior. And also all the furniture was, let's say, custom designed to fit the house. The special note also is that we use skyframe windows here, but we wanted them in brass, so we had custom-made skyframe windows in brass for this project. Well, here you see the kitchen and also how the inside and outside kind of our continuous space. the stair and the hallway. The stair was actually a very central element in the house. It's a rather large house, so we used one stair to make sure that everybody moves around the same space. But it's quite difficult because it was the only fire escape in the house, so we had to make a fireproof wooden stair. The bathrooms, all in green onyx. Well, here you see the front of the house. These louvers can actually open and close, so you can actually fully close the house and then open it again. And you see also the garden, part of the garden. We also designed actually the garden and selected all the trees, including this fantastic 100-year-old Japanese tree. Here again the entrance, the brass doors out of one piece, all engineered and detailed meticulously. The railings and again the inside-outside connections. And roof detailing, where you see this kind of staggered effect from brown marble to brass and copper detailing. And here you see the garage as you actually enter into the garage, and you see also all the low fencing that was done, and then all the major, let's say, security measures are hidden in the landscaping around the house. The garage actually was really designed as a kind of central reception area, because that's the place where you really enter the house, that's where you always come in. So we made it into a very large salon-like space, a very beautiful room. The stair, again, the very important central staircase that creates a sense of intimacy in the house, because that's where everybody meets and everybody is connected. And then we just have a very short movie on the project.
In the morning, we had a little bit of a conversation about how we photograph buildings. And I just want to extend that a little bit, because when you started, you described the two sides of the house, and the open side and the closed side. And in all the images you've shown, it's all focused on the building as the artifact, that we're always looking at the building. Could you give us some sense of what is the relationship to the back and the ISAR? Because, in the last aerial, you get a sense that, if you had to be inside the house, get out, you're very close. There are certain thresholds to the river. But we don't get that in the presentation. And
Yeah, correct.
yeah, so because it's always focusing on the object. So if you could give us a view from the house rather than a view of the house.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's a very good point about the views of the house and where you actually see the river and where not. From the bedroom levels, you have a fantastic view over the river, but they're not photographed out of privacy reasons. And then from the top level is a swimming pool from which you can see the river very clearly. And that's also why we put the swimming pool on the top level to create these amazing views over the river. But it's a very good point, I understand, yeah. But the house was really designed to actually modulate between those two sides, yeah.
I'm curious to know a bit about your design intention around the sensory experience of the visitor or the person in this building. What do they feel? What is it meant to feel like or evoke?
Sorry, it's very hard for me to hear the question.
Sorry, I'm curious to know about your intention of the sensory experience in design. Yeah.
Yeah, so the sense was very important from the client's perspective that the house would be really physical, and the stone was such an important element of the design. That's also why the stones were really large, because we really wanted this kind of feeling of weight and the heaviness of the house to be really present. So especially in some of the rooms, you really feel the weight, and there's a lot of materiality. That's also, you could say, the Losian aspect of it. It's extremely materialized. And then towards the garden, there's more open rooms where you just have more the feeling of landscape and nature. But it was exactly the tactility and materiality which was extremely important. For instance, also the brass door, how you touch the brass door, how that feels like. That's also why we made the sky frame actually not aluminum but brass, because it has a different touch and a different feel.
Do you imagine children in this house?
Yes, they have 4 children in this house, yes.
Okay. I'm curious to know what the experience would be for a small child or a very old person, because when you talk about Los, I imagine things that are very scaled to the human body and very ergonomic.
Yeah, in a way, you could also say that, yes, definitely they were scaled to the human body in Los's case, but also, of course, to a certain effect. There was also always a certain spatial effect that he wanted to achieve. Not necessarily the feeling of smallness or bigness, but maybe a combination of both. But the children's rooms are actually extremely nicely detailed and very well laid out. But the house is really one whole piece of, well, you could say art or architecture, interior architecture. It's a kind of combined effort. So
are the children's bedrooms completely covered with marble as well?
Of course not, no, of course not. But there is actually a lot of space for also play and fun in the house. There's actually a bowling alley in the garage, but of course they're all designed, you know, so.
Do you see it as a monument? I'm sorry, I've asked this question before today, but sometimes I'm curious. Is it monumental?
I think it is definitely unmistakably monumental when you drive by. It's interesting that the house is actually quite well known in Munich. The taxi drivers all know it as the big brown house, because when you drive by, there's no wall. All the neighbors have walls, and it just is extremely present, also in its materiality, and also because of its symmetry. It's clearly extremely monumental, yeah. So that was also part of the design thrill for us, was to actually work with this heaviness, because the back, you could say, is more 21st century-like, you could say, while actually the front is definitely 19th century. So there's this real tension in the design to work actually with these two kind of emotions was also extremely nice, actually, and rewarding to be able to make such a gesture.
It was coming more from you or from the client?
Well, definitely also from the client. Definitely also from the client. But the client was extremely driven in this project. He was very engaged. We had weekly meetings of one full day where we would discuss all the details, all the works. So it was a very engaged, you could say, design that was really done in unison, you know, not only with him but also with Liegra. So there was a whole, let's say, feeling of really creating this house together.
What did you save money on?
Sorry?
What did you save money on?
Where did we save money?
Yeah.
Well, no, well, there was definitely discussions, but it was always about optimizing beauty, yeah.
No budget. Adolf Loos is saying in his books about the books from the villas
before his time, that the architect designed everything till the shoes of the client. So you designed also everything?
Well, no, it's interesting. We're still working for the client on different projects, and it's interesting how we work on different places and we design different things. But it's amazing to have a client who's so dedicated to a project. There's something really special about that kind of encounter, I would say. Yeah.
Sorry. That's a nice note to end on. Thank you very much.